The rain gently tapped on the windows, echoing the quietness of my life. I sat in my favorite armchair with a familiar book on my lap, but my attention was on the steam from my teacup. The house was silent, save for the occasional creak of the floorboards, a sound I was accustomed to over the years. 8 years of living alone had taught me to find comfort in the stillness, but today the silence felt more pronounced. I looked at the unopened box on the kitchen counter. My new coffee maker had arrived earlier. A sleek, modern machine promising perfect coffee. Though I'd always been a tea person, the idea of starting my day with a rich coffee intrigued me. Maybe it was just the novelty. A small change in my predictable life. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone, but the sound was a welcome break. I set my teacup down and walked to the door, my slippers soft on the hardwood floor. A young man, no older than 30, stood there with a friendly smile and a toolkit on his shoulder. "Hi, I'm Peter," he said warmly. "I'm here to help set up your coffee maker." I was momentarily surprised, not expecting someone so young and handsome. His brown hair was tousled from the rain, and his green eyes sparkled with youthful energy, making me feel both nostalgic and a bit self-conscious. "Oh yes, of course," I said, stepping aside. "Please come in." As Peter entered, I noticed the state of my living room. Toys from my grandchildren's visit were scattered around, and a pair of my lace underwear was draped over the couch, forgotten in my rush to tidy up. I felt a flush of embarrassment, but Peter didn't seem to notice, or was too polite to mention it. "Nice place," he said, genuinely appreciative. "It's cozy." "Thank you," I replied, softer than intended. I led him to the kitchen, where the coffee maker sat in its box, waiting to be assembled. As Peter worked, I watched him more closely than I should. His confident, unhurried movements drew me in. His strong, skillful hands unpacked the coffee maker. I noticed his shirt clinging to his shoulders, damp from the rain, and the subtle scent of his cologne, sandalwood with something citrusy, filled the air. "So, do you always make house calls for coffee makers?" I asked, trying to lighten the mood and distract myself from the unexpected flutter in my chest. Peter chuckled, a warm, rich sound. "Not usually," he said. "But I was in the area and thought, why not? I like meeting new people." There was a pause, a silence filled with something unspoken. I felt my heart skip a beat and quickly looked away, pretending to focus on the coffee maker instructions. "Do you live around here?" I asked, a bit breathless. "Not too far," Peter replied. "Just a few blocks away. I moved here a couple of years ago. It's a nice neighborhood, quiet but friendly." I nodded, my mind racing. I hadn't felt this connection in years, not since my divorce. It was strange, exciting, and a bit scary. I wasn't sure what to do with these feelings, but I couldn't deny them. As Peter worked, our conversation flowed easily, filled with playful banter and shared laughter. I opened up to him in a way I hadn't with anyone in a long time. I talked about my love of books, my grandchildren, and how I always wanted to travel but never found the time. Peter shared his love for music, his dream of starting a business, and his recent breakup that left him feeling lost. "It's funny," he said, with a hint of sadness. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just going through the motions. Like I'm waiting for something to happen, but I'm not sure what." I nodded, feeling for him. "I know exactly what you mean," I said softly. "It's easy to feel lonely, even when surrounded by people." Our eyes met, and for a moment everything paused. I felt a surge of emotion, a longing I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. I wanted to reach out to close the gap, but I hesitated, unsure of his reaction. Peter seemed to understand what I was thinking and gave me a warm smile that made my heart race. "You're really easy to talk to," he said. "It's like I've known you forever." A warmth spread through my chest, a connection I hadn't felt in years. I smiled back, tears in my eyes. "I feel the same way," I said. The tension between us was intense, almost electric. I wanted to be closer to him, to feel his warmth. Without much thought, I excused myself and changed into a more daring outfit, a silky blouse and a skirt that showed off my legs. When I came back, Peter's eyes widened with appreciation. "You look amazing," he said, his voice deep and sincere. His words made me feel good but also vulnerable, as I was putting myself out there, risking rejection. Yet something about Peter made me feel secure. "Thank you," I whispered. We stood there, the air thick with unspoken feelings, then moved closer, our bodies almost touching. I could feel the heat coming from him and watched his chest rise and fall. "Amy," he began, his voice filled with emotion. Before he could continue, I placed my hands gently on his face. "It's okay," I whispered. "We don't have to feel lonely anymore." As the rain fell outside, we kissed, a tender, passionate kiss filled with longing and loneliness. We found comfort in each other, a bond that transcended age and circumstances. When we finally pulled back, a sense of peace washed over me, a hope I hadn't felt in years. I saw the same emotions in Peter's eyes, relief, joy, and a promise of something more. Embraced in his arms, I knew this was just the beginning. Whatever the future held, I was ready to face it with Peter. As the rain continued to fall, washing away the past and making way for the new, I felt a spark ignite within me, a guide to a future filled with love and endless possibilities. Morning light streamed through the curtains, casting a golden glow. I stirred, still warm from the night before. I blinked awake, piecing together the events: Peter, the coffee maker, the kiss. It felt like a dream, yet there he was lying beside me, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. I propped myself on one elbow, studying his face. In the daylight he seemed younger, his features softened by sleep. I marveled at the way the light caught the stubble on his chin. He was beautiful, making my heart ache with joy and fear. Joy for feeling alive again, and fear of what was to come. Sensing my gaze, Peter's eyes fluttered open. He looked momentarily confused, then smiled. "Morning," he murmured, his voice rough from sleep. "Good morning," I replied quietly. A warmth spread through my chest, a contentment I hadn't experienced in ages. Peter brushed my cheek. "You're even more beautiful in the morning," he said tenderly, making my heart skip a beat. A lump formed in my throat and I looked away, afraid he'd see my tears. I don't know what to say," I admitted, my voice trembling. Peter sat up, his expression serious. "You don't have to say anything," he reassured me. "Last night meant a lot. More than words can express." I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. "It meant a lot to me too," I said softly. "But I don't know what happens now. I'm not exactly young." Peter took my hand firmly. "Age is just a number," he insisted. "What matters is how we feel. And I feel something real with you, Amy. Something I've been missing." A wave of emotion hit me, both relief and fear. I wanted to believe him, to believe this was the start of something beautiful. But my mind warned me to be cautious, to protect myself from getting hurt. "I want to believe that," I said, my voice shaky. "But I'm scared, Peter. Scared of being hurt. Scared I won't be enough for you." Peter's face softened and he moved closer, placing a gentle kiss on my forehead. "You are more than enough," he reassured me. "I'm not going anywhere unless you want me to." A tear escaped my eye, and I quickly wiped it away. "I don't want you to leave," I whispered. Peter smiled, emotion shining in his eyes. "Then I'll stay," he replied. "As long as you want me." We sat in silence, the air thick with unspoken promises and the significance of our shared experiences. I felt peace and a hope I hadn't felt in years. Challenges lay ahead, but for the first time I felt ready to face them. "How about some coffee?" Peter suggested, breaking the quiet. "I owe you a proper cup." I laughed softly. "That sounds perfect," I said, feeling grateful. As we walked to the kitchen, I marveled at how my life had shifted in just one night. The coffee maker, once a symbol of loneliness, now represented my newfound connection with Peter. As he prepared our coffee, I watched him with a smile. "You know," I teased, "I might just become a coffee drinker after all." Peter grinned, a playful glint in his eyes. "I knew I could convert you," he said, handing me a steaming cup. "Here's to new beginnings." I accepted the cup, our fingers brushing slightly. "To new beginnings," I echoed, filled with hope. As we drank our coffee, the morning sun poured in, and a deep contentment settled over me. I didn't know what the future held, but I felt ready to embrace it. With Peter by my side, anything seemed possible. The day stretched out before us, full of endless possibilities, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the start of something truly beautiful. Thank you for listening. Did you like these infidelity stories? Drop a comment below if you want part 2. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more cheating wife stories.